A scandal is brewing across the UK as Rachel Reeves, Chancellor under Keir Starmer's Labour government, is accused of planning a stealth inheritance tax (IHT) raid that will leave baby boomers and their families facing massive financial losses. As new figures from HM Revenue and Customs (HMRC) reveal a significant rise in inheritance tax receipts, Britons are growing increasingly frustrated, with thousands of hard-working families being forced to pay more than ever before due to the government's underhanded tax strategy. With the government preparing to announce its autumn budget, fears are mounting that Reeves will continue her IHT freeze, causing more Britons to be swept into the tax net. The latest tax revenue statistics show that inheritance tax receipts reached a shocking £4.3 billion from April to September 2024, marking a £0.4 billion rise compared to the same period last year. This sharp increase has been driven by fiscal drag, a phenomenon where inflation causes asset values to rise while tax thresholds remain frozen. As a result, estates that were once comfortably below the IHT threshold are now being hit with a 40% tax, leaving families with unexpectedly high bills, and it's not just the ultra-wealthy who are being affected. Ordinary middle-class families, particularly those from the baby boomer generation, are now finding themselves in the government's tax crosshairs. The nil rate band, the threshold below which no inheritance tax is paid, has been frozen at £325,000 since 2009. As house prices, investments, and other asset values have risen sharply over the years, more estates have been pushed above this threshold, resulting in a dramatic increase in the number of families paying inheritance tax. For many baby boomers who had spent decades working and saving to pass on their wealth to their children and grandchildren, this has come as a devastating blow. Laura Hayward, a tax expert from Evelyn Partners, explained how fiscal drag has trapped thousands of families in the IHT net. The steady annual rise in IHT receipts has been ingrained in recent years as inflation has dragged more assets and more estates over the frozen nil-rate bands. She further warned that the situation is likely to get worse as the baby boomer generation, now in their 60s and 70s, begins to pass away in larger numbers. Any changes aimed at increasing the IHT take beyond this fiscal drag effect are likely to reap outsized results over the coming years as the baby boomer generation reaches average mortality, Hayward added. This latest surge in inheritance tax receipts has caused panic among families who fear that Labour's autumn budget will deliver another blow. Reeves is expected to either extend the freeze on IHT thresholds or reform IHT reliefs that currently help certain families avoid the worst of the tax burden. Many experts believe that Reeves is targeting business and agricultural property reliefs, which currently allow small business owners and farmers to pass on their estates without paying IHT. These reliefs have been crucial in protecting family farms and small businesses, and any changes to them could force many to sell off assets to pay massive tax bills. The prospect of such reforms has led to a surge in estate planning activity as families scramble to protect their wealth before Reeves announces the budget. Hayward noted that many people have rushed to gift significant assets to their children now in order to start the 7-year clock ticking, a reference to the rule that allows people to gift assets without being subject to IHT if they live for 7 more years. We've spoken to many people this summer who are bringing forward plans to gift substantial assets, not just to start the 7-year clock ticking, but also to preempt an expected capital gains tax (CGT) rise, Hayward said. While Labour continues to defend its IHT policies, critics argue that the threshold freeze amounts to a stealth tax hike, disproportionately affecting middle-class families and baby boomers. Many feel that Labour has betrayed its promise not to raise taxes on working people, as the effects of fiscal drag are pushing more estates into the IHT net, even though no changes to the rate have been officially announced. Patrick Christys, a commentator for GB News, launched a blistering attack on Rachel Reeves and Labour's handling of inheritance tax, accusing them of picking the pockets of baby boomers and using stealth tactics to generate more revenue. "What we're seeing here is an absolute betrayal," Christys said during his broadcast. Labour promised not to raise taxes on working people, but by freezing the IHT thresholds and allowing inflation to drag more estates into the tax net, they're quietly draining the savings of hard-working families. He added, "Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer need to come clean about their plans, Families across Britain are being hit with huge tax bills they never expected, and it's only going to get worse. The IHT scandal comes at a time when Rachel Reeves is facing mounting pressure over her autumn budget, which is expected to include £40 billion in tax hikes and spending cuts to plug the gap in public finances left by the previous Conservative government. While Labour has committed to avoiding increases in income tax, national insurance and VAT, inheritance tax has become a key target for raising revenue. This has led many to accuse Labour of quietly targeting baby boomers and middle-class families, while publicly claiming that they are only going after the ultra-wealthy. The potential reforms to business and agricultural property reliefs have raised concerns among farmers and small business owners who rely on these reliefs to ensure their businesses can stay in the family for generations. James Grindle, a farmer in South Leicestershire, expressed his fears about what Labour's IHT policies could mean for his family farm. "If they take away these reliefs, it's the end of my farm," he said. "I've spent years building this business, and if my kids are forced to sell land just to pay the tax, then everything I've worked for will be gone." Farmers and business owners are not alone in their concerns. Many families who are not ultra-wealthy but have seen their property values rise due to inflation are now being dragged into the IHT net, facing significant tax bills on what they had intended to pass on to their children. For families in London and the South East, where house prices have skyrocketed in recent years, even modest estates are being hit with substantial tax liabilities. The combination of fiscal drag and frozen thresholds has left many feeling that Labour is unfairly targeting them to cover the £40 billion budget deficit. The IHT scandal has also reignited a broader debate about tax fairness in Britain. Critics argue that the nil-rate band freeze disproportionately affects middle-income families, while the ultra-wealthy continue to find ways to avoid paying their fair share. Rachel Reeves has insisted that her government is committed to tax fairness, but the growing backlash suggests that many Britons feel abandoned by a party they believed would protect their interests. As the autumn budget approaches, all eyes are on Rachel Reeves and her next moves. The government is walking a tightrope, trying to balance the need for additional revenue with the public's demand for fairness and accountability. With the potential reforms to inheritance tax hanging in the balance, many families are left in limbo, anxiously waiting to see whether Labour will push forward with a stealth tax raid or listen to the growing chorus of opposition. For now, the future looks uncertain for baby boomers and middle-class families across Britain. The inheritance tax raid is already being viewed as one of the biggest challenges facing Rachel Reeves's government, and any missteps in the budget could have far-reaching consequences for Labour's credibility and public support. As more and more families are swept into the inheritance tax net, the pressure on Reeves to find a fair solution is mounting.